Schooled in the streets of New York and educated at Princeton, Mark's background is wide and varied. After a brief stint at Y&R, in 1984 he founded a management and PR firm named DGE that specialized in representing and recording and performing artists. He sold DGE in 1997 and moved to California to enjoy life without the humidity. Mark formed a content syndicate and began licensing real estate content to newspapers for print and digital use. By mid-1998, with over 400 subscribers, he joined Inman News as an independent consultant to help build the business base here. This section excites me because I was recently asked by a magazine, they said, Brian, if you had advice for people, hands down, what's that one piece of advice? Storytelling. It was my #1 piece of advice. So to me, this session here is so essential to take you to another whole level of video. I will let you introduce Christian, but let's welcome both to the stage today.
My name is Christian Sterner. I'm a co-founder of Welcome Ad, as Mark just said. Welcome Ad is basically a video platform for real estate agents, brokerages, and brands that want to center themselves and their viewership on their own website and generate traffic and audience around content, but also automated distribution, etc. We basically answer all the questions of what to do with quality content after it's been created.
Awesome. So, I purposely didn't even create a format for this conversation because what I kind of want to do is make this a bit more Web 2.0-ish or social, in that it's not just the two of us talking to you, but we'd like to hear from you guys too. So really almost immediately throw this out to the crowd. But how many of you are shooting video? Okay, so that's good. That's like more than half, which...
That is a huge difference.
Yeah, from like even a year or two ago and very few. Now, how many, because it's good for us to know this, like how many of you are shooting video using your iPhone versus like some good video equipment? So who's using your iPhones?
That's not count. It depends on the situation.
Yeah, okay. So it depends on the situation, and maybe that situation has to do with this sort of story that you want to tell, right? To take it back to what this thing is all about. So I think storytelling in sort of a cinematic perspective, we go back many years to when it was like silent movies and they were telling stories. And throughout the years, cinema, which is where sort of video emerged from, became more and more elaborate. Remember in the 50s, movies were like featured choreography and dancing and really elaborate sets. And nowadays, stories are told through the movies or through TV using high-end special effects, video graphics. When YouTube emerged and brought, which was like when those guys built that thing, they never expected to sell it for, what was it, $1.6 billion to Google. And when Google bought it, they didn't really have an idea even how it would make money, but the idea was that there's stories to be told everywhere in our lives, and if we can just capture a little bit of it on video and post it, there's some social capital to it. It's been my observation, and you guys can certainly disagree with it, that at some point real estate began to be taught or understand that there's some value in shooting video. So where I sort of see, and I think where you sort of saw video, was that real estate was capturing video through these cheap little flip cameras and sending them up to YouTube to start to tell stories about what? About yourselves, about the properties that you're selling. And I think it was limited to just those two things. But, you know, I guess my question to you and to the audience is, in the art of storytelling, it's the job of the author to try to tell a story that its readers would be interested in. And is that story of shooting video of yourself or just shooting a tour of a house enough of a story that people are actually interested in?
I think the answer to that question is really what's the informational value of what you're sharing. But in terms of storytelling, you know, I think if you think about the things that have influenced your lives the most, and you think about what it is that you love so much about those things or hate, it's that there's a story attached to them, that basically someone has emotionally connected you with either something that you agree with, disagree with, whatever. So it's the most powerful form of communication, storytelling. And you know, generally speaking, especially in the real estate context, locally focused stories is like blue ocean that nobody has really tapped into, and probably nobody will be able to tap into it to the degree that real estate companies will be able to. Outside of the real estate space, the trend is clearly moving away from user-generated content. YouTube is probably one of the only surviving platforms that is still allowing user-generated content. The rest of the video platforms out there have run from it, and they're running as fast as they possibly can. Even YouTube is, you know, as I think I heard a couple people mention, is really focusing in on entertainment-based content. And it's very rarely the case that it's user-generated content.
Let's reference those other platforms.
Oh, the ones that stopped?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so Bright Cove used to have a user-generated system that they were basically leveraging to sell their pro-level platform. They stopped accepting user-generated content. AOL Video, Tom might actually be a better person to answer this question, but I think AOL Video just completely stopped, you know, allowing people to upload content. Is that correct? And so I guess the other companies are like Vivo. They kind of went away and fell by the wayside. They're really leveraging YouTube's platform now. Vio, basically gone. You know, they're dying pretty quickly. So that's just a few examples, but you know, in general, I think it goes without saying that user-generated content is not being valued at all by brands. So if what you're trying to do is tell stories in a way that basically elevate your brand, either as a personal brand, you know, a brokerage brand, a franchise brand, and you're using user-generated content to do that, that is a critical mistake. But if you're using video for informational purposes, I think there is a lot of value sometimes.
So I agree. We should probably like maybe list the various different stories that maybe you guys, if you want to volunteer, like some of the things that you're shooting video of. It would be good just for all of us to kind of know what kind of stories you're generating.
Who in here is highlighting their localities as far as the people in your communities that you would like to celebrate because they're either very interesting or very knowledgeable? Who here is doing sort of profile videos of local characters?
There's one. And maybe to further explain that, how many of you do neighborhood videos? Okay. So when you do neighborhood videos, how many of you are shooting you walking through the neighborhoods where the camera is focused on you talking about the neighborhoods? Just very few. So the rest of you are actually shooting the neighborhoods, letting the neighborhoods tell its own stories. How are some of you doing that?
We hired a film crew to come in for a couple of weeks and did a couple of, I guess, key focus areas. One was area and neighborhood videos, and the other is just about the area, what it's like to live there, spotlighting local businesses, spotlighting local coffee shops, spotlighting the different industries, the airport, the important factors of what it's like to live there or why people would want to live in our localities. And we really use the residents to tell the story and not us, right? Because they, you know, the joke is nobody trusts realtors, so why do we want to be the ones telling people how great it is to live in a location? Whereas, you know, we know people locally, so let's get them to tell the story of what it's like to live in our area.
At Halstead Property, we've actually done them for all the different neighborhoods, and we've had brokers that live in a certain area. For example, I was featured in the one in Gramercy Park, so I think there were maybe 6 or 7 of us, and we walked around the neighborhood. It was, you know, one agent at a time, kind of, you know, just kind of talking about our favorite spots, what it was that we loved about the area, why we chose to live there as agents when, you know, there's so many other parts of the city. And it was really interesting because it just felt much more personal. It wasn't like we were just absolutely trying to sell something. We were just kind of telling our story. So although I tend to agree that, you know, sometimes brokers aren't the most trusted source of, you know, that's what you said, but I think in this case it came off as being very genuine.
The guys who shoot our videos sometimes hate me because I'll get back to them and we go through the planning of the video and walking into every property. I think about what's the theme of this apartment, who's my target buyer, who's gonna buy this, who's gonna watch it, what are they gonna think about, how am I gonna get them to see it, and then I don't necessarily script, but I definitely talk through with them, here's what I wanna highlight. They've sent me back the rough cut where I've asked them, can you change the music? I don't like the way this music is. I mean, they use, you know, licensed music, and sometimes I'll say, like, I want to do this differently. I want to spotlight something here. I want to try a different approach from the normal approach. My videos get, you know, I think all of our property videos get really great feedback, and I use it also as a tool in screening buyers. So, for instance, someone will email me about a listing, and I say to them, look, I don't want to waste your time. Maybe this isn't for you. You know, take a look at the video. I actually just got an email back from someone who said, wow, that video is really great, like really good production value. So, you know, I saw the video you did for Houlihan last year. I thought it was great. I think anyone who thinks videos shouldn't be slickly produced, I don't like the word slick, but professionally well produced, is missing the point. So many people come to my listings and they'll say, oh my God, it looks exactly like it does on the video. And a lot of buyers, like, they're savvy in this market. They know pictures get stretched and manipulated, but it's hard to do that with video, even with very high quality video. You're not manipulating images. I'm in front of the camera leading the tour, but we work with professional crew that comes in with professional equipment, and they're filming, and so it's also a team. Like, we function as a team, so I sit down with them and say, look, here, let me take you through this apartment first. Before they even pick up the camera, the first thing they do with me is I give them a tour of the home, just like I would give anyone else a tour. I want them to see what it's all about so that they can help me craft the story. And that goes, you know, we have a whole section on our website on Halstead Proper TV with bio videos for, you know, hundreds of agents probably now. Hundreds of agents. You know, that was also a story that, you know, that tells the story about each individual agent, just like the neighborhood profiles tell a story about a neighborhood, why agents would choose to live there without them selling properties in that video. Everything tells a story. I mean, to tell a story, that's the most elementary part, and that's where it all begins and ends for me.
1000 Watt actually created a bunch of videos, but the one that always sticks out in my mind is New York's Backyard on Houlihan Lawrence's website. And, you know, what really blew me away was the amount of planning that you guys did in order to tell the story.
There was a lot of criticism by a lot of real estate folks over that process.
Mike's picking you.
I had it too low.
Got it.
Yeah, we got a lot of criticism over that process, which we still do, but it's something that we should really talk about, which is sort of the production. So, how many of you guys blog? Right? So, the process by which you tell your story through your blog is no different than maybe telling your story through video. So when you sit down to write a blog, you have a theme in mind, right? You have an idea. We all have our own writing styles. Some people just like to start typing, other people like to sort of make bullet points so they know where they're going to begin, where they're going to middle, and then where they're going to end. And then when you're done with that process, you start to edit, right? You just don't hit publish after you just finish your last word, right? I hope. Okay. So like there's that thought process going into it. What am I going to write about? And then there's the editing process of either you reading through, and however you do that, maybe you read it out loud, just check for a theme, or you show it to somebody, and then you finally publish it. What I've kind of seen over the years with real estate video, which is point and shoot and then publish. You know, whether it's with the iPhone or whether it's with a flip cam, you're turning it on, you're shooting it, and whatever quality and condition it's in, that's sort of been, you're told, you're better off doing something than nothing, so just throw this sort of Blair Witch-like video up on to the screen. But does that really tell the whole story? That might have told part of the story, but there's another part of the story, which is your story, like the type of person you are and what you stand for. And if your video is a 60-second, shaky, you know, the camera's all on you, what kind of story is that also telling? So for the video that you mentioned, we sort of did this production around Westchester County, right? It's New York's backyard. And a lot of our clients, customers who are relocating from New York City to Westchester seem to always have the same question in mind. Like, what is my commute going to be like? How am I going to adapt from a city living to a suburban living? So in creating this video, we had to, first think about their story, because that's the audience. So what does the audience want to hear? And that's something that every writer has to think about when they write, or whether you're writing video or blogging, right? You've got to think about what it's going to sell, what is my audience going to be attracted to, and then you've got to storyboard it. So when we finished with these videos, we were accused of doing high-end Hollywood slick production, which, if I remember correctly...
How dare you?
Yeah, how dare I? And one of the things was that high-end slick production makes real estate appear untrustworthy. And I found that to be really an anomaly in a world full of commercials and movies and TV productions where quality is king, because the story can only best be told when it's edited properly and there's the right music and everything is well thought out and scripted. So for that production, which was considerable, it took about a month of pre-production. It took 3 days on the ground. We interviewed 500 people. We drove through New York and up into Westchester. We actually went on the train and took the train. We found somebody that worked at Morgan Stanley who agreed to be on film and be with her in the morning when she woke up and put her business self together and got on the train. And we actually filmed her sleeping on the train on the way to New York and really told that whole story that would resonate with. So anyway, that video, from what I understand, the New York Times wanted to license that for their video library. It's gone quite viral. One of the, I just noticed in the background, one of the owners of the company could probably speak more to how well that video has told the brand's story. So the question that I put back to you and the audience is, how many of you guys who are shooting video, give that sort of production value from storyboard to final editing and choosing music as much thought as we think you should, or how many of you are still just sort of gunning it and just shooting it, and what have you seen the results of if you've done one or the other? The quality of that video and the way the video is articulated, its subject matter, the biggest thing of all is what story it tells about your brand. So clearly, like up here, we're somewhat snobby about good quality production. But you know, there's like sort of been...
Some of us more so than others.
Yeah. But so here's my feeling on it. If I handed you a scalpel, would you go do surgery on somebody tomorrow just because you had that tool? So we've been gifted in real estate with some tools to do some things that in the past were really tools that were in the hands of professionals. And you just look in the background, you see guys with these tripods and serious cameras, like, you know, most of us don't know how to use that, but we can turn this on and hit a button and go like that. And that's become sort of preached in real estate as, hey, go do video, it's really easy, you can use this tool. But what about the professional skill set that goes behind, to what Renee is saying? Would you like to get a mic?
What does that mean?
What does storytelling mean?
Yeah, do I create characters and I show, like, here's, you know, June and Ward getting out of bed?
No,
or you're saying storytelling. What does that, how do you tell a story? You're saying tell stories, but tell us, how do you tell a story?
Good question.
So a good way to look at it is like, you know, I live in Boulder, Colorado, which I think is the best town in the world.
I disagree with that.
Mark, well, yeah, that's another story altogether. But generally speaking, like if I was trying to tell the story of my locality and like the people in it and stuff like that, I literally have a list of people that I would have telling the story of the town. It's instantaneous. That list just pops into my head. I'm like, these are the things that I would highlight about my town or my area that basically demonstrates me as the expert in my area. And the reality is, I'm actually not so much telling the story. I'm getting the people and the places and all the characters in the neighborhoods to tell the story for me.
So, okay, so that's, if we're gonna do, let's say, the art of storytelling around a property, there's many different ways to tell that story. And I'm not gonna say that any one is better or worse than the other, but it sort of gets down to point A, which is just storyboarding what you're going to go film. So if you want to walk through the house with a camera and shoot all the rooms, and either be in front of the camera or behind the camera. I just saw one just the other day. It was a gentleman somewhere in the Midwest who did a very specific house tour. He started outside the house where he was facing the camera and the sun was behind him. So for the first 30 seconds, all you see is this guy squinting and having a very hard time like paying attention to what he's trying to say because the sun is clearly blinding him. Because of where the sun was, it was casting the shadow over this huge oak tree that created, it basically covered the whole house in a shadow. So while he's telling one story in a difficult manner, I'm getting a completely different story that he's very uncomfortable and then the house is dark inside. And because if I'm just a regular consumer and I'm not aware of like light and negative space and certain things that go into making good video, and then when he went to go into the house, he was tied to a wired mic that sort of tethered him to something that kept catching him. So as he was trying to tell the story of the house, I'm watching the story of this sort of, you know, it was buffoonish-like.
So ultimately, our stories can set terms about our brand, ultimately, well, as we're looking forward as what do we want to reflect with people. One of the most interesting things, and Matthew, I know you're in, Matthew Farrar, did you leave? He was here. Okay, if you notice, there's a big video that went around the internet here recently. Remember the naked guy in the house? Anyone seen that video? Ladies, yes. And we saw a very distinct story there. Does anyone remember the name of the company in Australia that did it? And what happened was the video starts all black and white and it opens with this beautiful Adonis man laying shirtless, torso in the bed, armpit behind his head. He gets out of bed and we see him in all of his glory. He goes walking around the house completely naked for the next 4 minutes. All of you are now Googling to find this video. So as he walks around, he goes down to the pool area or his kitchen area where he places a shirt over a naked female. Again, we're just seeing backside only. That's why we're not showing it today because we are a G-rated group today. So once they walk around he walks around the house in all of his glory, going to each part, brushing his teeth. He is swimming in the pool. He goes and makes his coffee. Then there's a knock on the door. Someone comes to the door and hands him a pair of jeans. And the story ends with, the home is so private, you can walk around naked.
Yeah, and you know, the story I got from that video was that this guy's junk was touching every single thing in the house. And if I were going to even think about buying the house, I have to bring in a forensic expert to like, dust everything.
And what the consumers proved was the home sold in 3,800 views. So
okay, yeah, but it did. Really, like, is that like? So that was the story. But meanwhile, there's this like unconscious naked woman on the sofa, and I'm thinking this guy's like this naked mass murderer. That.